I watched Bianca Carlisle pack her $5,000 handbag, weeping over a severance agreement she refused to sign. 2 hours ago, she held my termination letter like a royal decree, mocking my shoes in front of the entire lobby. Now, security was escorting her out, and the billionaire she tried to impress was waiting in the parking lot, asking me if I wanted to destroy the company or save it. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. My eyes snapped open at 4:15 in the morning, exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes before my alarm was set to ring. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I just lay there in the dark of my studio apartment, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked vaguely like the state of Florida, while my heart hammered against my ribs like a bird trapped in a shoebox. It was the day. That's what I'd been calling it in my head for 6 months. The day, the capital D day. The day Timothy Nolan, the CEO of Nolan Veride Technologies, would sign the merger agreement with Pierce & Associates, bringing $4 billion of valuation under our umbrella. My throat felt dry, like I'd swallowed a handful of sand. I tried to swallow, but the muscles in my neck were tight, coiled springs ready to snap. I started doing the math. I always did the math when I was panicking. It was a compulsion. A way to impose order on a world that felt like it was constantly trying to slide out from under my feet. If the deal signed today, my performance bonus would be roughly $45,000. $45,000. I closed my eyes and visualized the number written out in black ink. That money wasn't just a luxury, it was a lifeline. It was the exact amount I needed to pay off the remaining balance of my student loans, with enough left over to fix the transmission on my Honda Civic and maybe, just maybe, move into an apartment where the refrigerator didn't hum loudly enough to wake the dead. But if the deal failed, I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. If the deal failed, I was nothing. I was a 29-year-old junior associate sitting at a desk in the lobby because there wasn't enough office space for support staff, drowning in interest payments, pretending to be a high-flying financier while eating instant ramen 4 nights a week. I rolled over and grabbed my phone from the nightstand. The screen lit up the room with a harsh blue glow. No emails, no texts from Timothy Nolan canceling, no emergency alerts from my boss, Deborah Pierce. Just the silence of 4:17 in the morning. I should sleep. I needed to sleep. If I went into this meeting tired, I might miss a detail. I might forget that Timothy takes his coffee with 2 sugars, not 1. I might hand him the wrong pen. I might stutter when he asks about the indemnification clause on page 52. And if I stuttered, he might lose confidence. And if he lost confidence, he might walk. And if he walked, I would be stuck in this apartment forever. I kicked the duvet off my legs. It was useless. The anxiety was a physical thing now, a buzzing current running through my veins that made lying still impossible. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. "Okay, we're up. We're doing this." I got out of bed and walked to the tiny kitchenette, my bare feet sticking slightly to the cheap linoleum. I filled the kettle. While the water heated, I went to the closet and pulled out my outfit. It wasn't a power suit. I couldn't afford a power suit, not the kind the senior VPs wore with their tailored lines and Italian wool. It was practical. A pair of beige khakis that I had ironed so sharply you could cut paper with the crease. A navy blue blouse that was breathable because I knew I would be sweating. And my shoes, sensible black flats with arch support, because I knew I would be on my feet for 12 hours straight running documents between the boardroom and the printer. I looked at the clothes hanging there. They didn't scream executive. They screamed worker. They screamed, "I am here to facilitate your success, not steal your spotlight." That was the strategy. That was always the strategy with Timothy Nolan. He hated flash. He hated arrogance. He liked people who did the work. And God, I had done the work. The check engine light flickered on exactly 3 miles from the Interstate 95 on-ramp. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned the color of old milk. "No," I said aloud. "No, no, no, do not do this to me." Not today. My Honda Civic, a trusted companion that had survived 6 years of abuse and 140,000 miles, gave a low, shuddering cough. The temperature needle on the dashboard began a slow, terrifying creep toward the red H. I looked at the digital clock on the dashboard, 6:30 a.m. If I pulled over now, I could let the engine cool down. I could call AAA. They would take 45 minutes to arrive, maybe an hour, then a tow truck, then a ride to a mechanic. I would miss the 8 o'clock prep meeting. If I missed the prep meeting, the new merger documents wouldn't be collated. The narrative binder for Timothy wouldn't be set up. Someone else, probably Chad from sales, who didn't know the difference between a merger and an acquisition, would try to handle it. Chad would screw it up. He would try to sell Timothy on something he didn't need, and Timothy would get that look in his eye, that cold, shark-like look that meant he was done listening. I couldn't pull over. "Come on," I pleaded with the dashboard, tapping the plastic glass over the temperature gauge as if I could physically push the needle back down. "Just 10 more miles. Just get me to the parking garage. You can explode in the garage. I don't care. Just don't die on the highway." The car shuddered again, a violent vibration that rattled my teeth. I turned off the radio. I turned off the air conditioning, even though it was already 70 degrees and humid outside. I rolled down the windows to blast the heater, an old trick my dad had taught me to pull heat away from the engine. Hot air blasted into my face, smelling of exhaust and panic. I merged onto the highway, keeping the car in the right lane, doing exactly 55 miles per hour. Cars were flying past me, blurring shapes of red and silver. A BMW honked aggressively as it swerved around me, the driver flipping me off. I didn't react. I didn't care. I was entirely focused on the relationship between my foot on the gas pedal and the needle on the dashboard. It was hovering just below the red line. It was taunting me. If this car dies, I thought, my brain spiraling into the worst-case scenario, instantly, I will have to walk. It's 5 miles. I can walk 5 miles in flats, but I'll be sweaty. I'll look unprofessional. Deborah will see me and think I can't manage my own life, let alone a $4 billion client. My stomach twisted. I felt bile rise in my throat. This was the razor's edge I lived on. One mechanical failure, one unexpected bill, one flat tire, and the entire house of cards that was my career would collapse. Rich people didn't have this problem. Bianca Carlisle, the daughter of our VP of Operations, didn't stare at temperature gauges. She probably drove a car that warned her in a polite British accent if something was wrong, and then a concierge service would bring her a replacement vehicle while she waited in a cafe drinking artisanal matcha. I hated that I was thinking about her. I'd only seen her once, briefly, at the company Christmas party, but rumors were flying that she was starting today as a consultant. The needle touched the red line. "Please," I whispered, tears actually pricking the corners of my eyes. "Please." I saw the exit sign, Exit 4B, downtown. I held my breath. I coasted down the off-ramp, putting the car in neutral to save the engine strain. The light at the bottom was green. Thank God, thank every God that has ever existed. I rolled through the intersection, the engine making a sound like a bag of marbles in a blender. I turned into the parking garage structure of the Pierce & Associates building. I made it to the 3rd level, found a spot in the back corner away from the executive reserved spaces, and turned the key. The engine didn't just stop. It died with a final wet clunk. Steam hissed faintly from under the hood. I sat there for a full minute, shaking. My hands were vibrating so hard I couldn't unclench them from the wheel. "Thank you," I breathed to the car. "I'm sorry. I'll fix you when I get the bonus. I promise." I grabbed my bag, checked my face in the rearview mirror to make sure I didn't look like I'd just piloted a crashing plane, and stepped out. The glass doors of the Pierce & Associates lobby slid open with a smooth, expensive whoosh. The air conditioning hit me first, a wall of crisp filtered air that smelled of floor wax and ambition. This was my sanctuary. This was the place where I wasn't Lydia Reynolds, the girl with the broken car and the student debt. Here, I was Lydia Reynolds, the senior analyst who held the keys to the Nolan deal. I walked across the polished marble floor, my flats making a soft, rhythmic slapping sound. "Morning, Lydia." I looked up and felt the first genuine smile of the day break across my face. Marcus was sitting at the security desk, his massive frame looking slightly too big for the ergonomic chair. "Morning, Marcus," I said, leaning over the high counter. "How's the back?" Marcus grimaced, but his eyes were kind. "Rain's coming. I can feel it in the L4 vertebrae, better than the weatherman." I laughed. It was a short, sharp release of tension. "Well, let's hope it holds off until after 2 p.m. I need Timothy Nolan to be in a good mood, and he hates getting his shoes wet." Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. "He's coming in at 10, right? I got a spot reserved right out front. Cones and everything. No valet needed." I could have hugged him. "You are a lifesaver, Marcus. Seriously." If he had to wait for the valet, he'd start checking his watch, and if he checks his watch, he starts thinking about how much time he's wasting. "I got you, Lydia," Marcus said, giving me a thumbs up. "You go get him. Big day." "Big day," I echoed. I walked away from the security desk feeling a pang of something complicated. I liked Marcus. I liked the cleaning crew. I liked the lady who ran the coffee cart in the lobby. I felt comfortable with them. We spoke the same language, the language of back pain and overtime and worrying about the price of gas. But when I looked up at the elevators that led to the executive suites on the 30th floor, I felt a tightness in my chest. The executives, they were a different species. They were sharks in suits, and today I had to swim with them. I reached my desk. It wasn't really a desk in the traditional sense. It was a workstation situated behind a frosted glass partition in the corner of the lobby atrium. It was meant for overflow administration, but I had claimed it 3 years ago. The executives upstairs laughed at it. They called it the fishbowl. They asked why I didn't want a cubicle on the 12th floor. They didn't get it. From here, I saw everything. I saw who came in late. I saw who left early. I saw which clients looked happy and which ones looked like they wanted to sue us. I controlled the flow of information before it even reached the elevators. This desk was my command center. I dropped my bag and immediately went into the ritual. It had to be precise. It had to be perfect. First, the computer. 3 monitors flickered to life. I opened the market watch on the left screen, my email in the center, and the merger contract. Version Final V4 print on the right. I stared at the file name. Version Final V4 print. Was it the right one? Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. Did I save the changes from legal regarding the intellectual property dispute? Or was that V3? I opened the document. I scrolled frantically to page 42, paragraph 7. Nolan Vareed Technologies retains all rights to subsidiary patents pending prior to 2024. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was there. It was correct. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay, stop freaking out." Next, the physical layout. I reached into my drawer and pulled out the specific pens Timothy liked. They were Pilot G2s, 0.7 millimeter, blue ink. Not black, blue. He insisted on blue because black looks like a photocopy. I laid 3 of them out in a perfect parallel line next to the signature flags. Then, the coaster. I placed a leather coaster on the right side of the desk, exactly where he would place his coffee cup. I checked the time. 7:15 a.m. I had 45 minutes before the rest of the staff started trickling in. I needed to review the client dossier one last time. I opened the green notebook I kept locked in my bottom drawer. This wasn't a company document. This was my document. It was a handwritten log of every interaction I'd ever had with Timothy Nolan over the last 2 years. October 12th. Mentioned his granddaughter, Sophie, is starting violin lessons. December 5th. Complained about the humidity in Florida worsening his wife's arthritis. January 10th. Mentioned he's trying to cut down on caffeine, switching to half-caff afternoon. I scanned the list, downloading the information into my brain. Violin, I whispered to myself. Ask about the recital, ask about the humidity. Make sure the coffee is fresh, but offer herbal tea just in case. This was how I won. I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I certainly wasn't the richest, but I noticed things. I cared about things that other people thought were beneath them. While the VPs were trying to impress Timothy with charts and graphs, I was asking him about his garden, and that was why he trusted me. I closed the notebook and locked it away. I sat back, smoothing the front of my khakis. I was ready. I was prepared. I had controlled every variable, except one. At 7:58, the revolving doors spun, and the atmosphere in the lobby changed instantly. It wasn't a sound. It was a smell. A wave of vanilla and expensive jasmine wafted through the air, overpowering the smell of floor wax. It was the kind of perfume that costs $300 an ounce, the kind that announces, "I have arrived, and I expect you to enjoy it." Then came the clicking. Click, click, click. It was the sharp staccato rhythm of high heels on marble, not sensible work heels. These sounded like stilettos. Hard, aggressive, weaponized footwear. I looked up from my monitors. She was walking toward the security desk, but she wasn't looking at Marcus. She was looking at her phone, holding it up like a shield. It was Bianca Carlisle. I'd seen photos of her on her father's desk, Richard Carlisle, the VP of Operations. In the photos, she was usually on a boat or holding a glass of wine at a gala. In person, she was overwhelming. She was wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that looked like it was made of silk. It was impeccably tailored, cinched at the waist, flowing perfectly over legs that seemed to go on for miles. Her hair was a cascading waterfall of blonde waves that looked like they had been professionally blown out that morning. She looked like a stock photo of success. My stomach dropped. This was the consultant. I watched as she stopped at the security desk. She didn't say good morning. She just tapped her badge against the reader without looking up from her screen. Marcus tried to say something, probably, "Good morning, Miss Carlisle." But she was already moving past him, the turnstile clicking as she pushed through. She stopped. She looked around the lobby, her eyes scanning the space with an expression that sat somewhere between boredom and disgust. Then, her eyes landed on me. Or rather, they landed on my desk. The fishbowl. She frowned. It was a tiny movement, a wrinkling of her perfect nose, but I saw it. She tilted her head, confused. Then she started walking toward me. My heart rate spiked again. "Don't look at me," I thought. "Just go to the elevator. Just go upstairs to your dad's office and play business. Leave me alone." But she didn't turn. She was coming straight for the glass partition. I stood up. It was a reflex. I couldn't be sitting while she was standing. It felt too vulnerable. "Can I help you?" I asked, forcing my voice to be steady. She stopped 3 feet away from my desk. Up close, her makeup was flawless, not a pore visible. She looked me up and down, her eyes traveling from my face to my blouse, down to my khakis, and finally resting on my flats. The silence stretched for 3 seconds. 4. "Oh," she said. Her voice was light, airy, and dripping with a sweetness that made my teeth ache. "You must be the support staff?" "I'm Lydia Reynolds," I said, extending a hand. "Senior analyst." She didn't take my hand. She just kept looking at my clothes. "Senior analyst?" she repeated, a small laugh escaping her lips. "Oh, wow, that's ambitious." She stepped closer, invading my personal space. The smell of vanilla was suffocating now. "I'm Bianca," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I'm consulting on corporate brand alignment starting today." "Welcome aboard," I said. My hand was still extended. I awkwardly dropped it to my side. "I'm actually just prepping for the Nolan merger signing at 10, so if you need—" "Honey," she interrupted. She reached out and, I couldn't believe it, she touched the collar of my blouse. She smoothed it down, a gesture that looked affectionate, but felt like she was petting a stray dog. "Are you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed with deep, exaggerated concern. "Excuse me? I mean," she lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, "is everything okay at home? Financially?" I felt the blood drain from my face. What? "It's just the outfit," she said, gesturing vaguely at my body. "It's very brave to wear this to a client-facing role. I mean, those pants." She let out a soft sigh. "They look so comfortable, like something my housekeeper wears to scrub the floors. It must be nice to just not care about professional presentation." The rage hit me so fast I almost choked. My housekeeper. "These are standard business casual," I said, my voice tight. "And I've worn them for 3 years. Timothy Nolan has never had an issue with my attire." "Oh, sweetie," Bianca cooed. She shook her head sadly. "That's the problem, isn't it? Just because no one says anything doesn't mean they aren't thinking it. I'm just trying to look out for you. I'd hate for you to embarrass the firm on such a big day." She reached into her $5,000 bag and pulled out a sleek, leather-bound booklet, the Employee Handbook. "I was reading this in the car," she said, flipping it open. "Page 12. Employees must maintain a polished professional appearance commensurate with the firm's prestige." She looked up at me, closing the book with a snap. "Khakis and what are those? Orthopedic flats?" She smiled, a sad, pitying smile. "That's not prestige, Lydia. That's giving up." "I am here to work," I said, my hands clenching into fists behind my back. "I am here to close a $4 billion deal. My shoes allow me to run documents to legal in 3 minutes flat. My clothes are clean and pressed. I am not violating any policy." Bianca's smile hardened at the edges. The toxic benevolence was slipping, revealing the steel underneath. "See? That attitude?" she said softly. "That defensive, chip-on-your-shoulder energy? That's actually more concerning than the shoes. It tells me you don't respect the brand. And if you don't respect the brand, how can we trust you with our biggest client?" "I built this relationship with Timothy Nolan," I said, fighting the urge to scream. "I know him. He doesn't care about brands. He cares about competence." "Does he?" Bianca tilted her head. "Or have we just set the bar so low that he's settled for mediocrity?" She took a step back, looking around the lobby. People were starting to arrive. A few heads turned. She wanted an audience. "I think," she said, her voice projecting slightly so the receptionist could hear, "that maybe you should go home, change into something appropriate, or maybe just take the day to rethink if this is the right environment for you." "I have a meeting at 10, I said. "I am not leaving." "I'm the lead consultant on brand standards," Bianca said, "and I'm telling you, you are not client ready. You look messy. It's distracting." "I am not leaving," I repeated. Bianca sighed, a long, tragic sigh. "Okay, I tried to be nice. I tried to help you save face." She pulled her phone out. "But if you're going to be difficult—" She tapped the screen. "Then I guess we have to do this the hard way." Bianca tapped her phone screen with a manicured nail, the sound like a tiny beak pecking against glass. "Daddy?" she said, putting the phone to her ear. She didn't turn away from me. She stared right at my eyes, her expression soft, pitiful. "Hi, yes, I'm in the lobby. I'm with— What was your name again? Linda?" "Lydia," I said. My voice was vibrating. I could feel the tremor starting in my knees and working its way up. "Lydia," Bianca corrected, smiling at me. "Yes, I'm handling a situation down here. We have a staff member who is refusing to adhere to the brand standards guide. Yes. Uh-huh. She's being resistant. It's causing a scene." I wasn't causing a scene. I was standing perfectly still. I was the statue of compliance, except for the fact that I wasn't leaving. "Okay," Bianca said. "You trust my judgment, right? You brought me in to fix the culture." "Exactly." "Okay, I'll handle it. Love you." She hung up and slid the phone back into her bag. She looked at me with the eyes of a veterinarian about to put down a sick dog. "So," she sighed, clasping her hands together, "here's the thing, Lydia. My father agrees with me. We can't have this kind of friction on day one of the new branding initiative." "I have a meeting," I said, but the words felt hollow. "Timothy Nolan is going to be here in—" I checked the wall clock. 9 minutes. "And we can't let him see you like this," Bianca said gently. "It would be cruel to you, honestly. To let you embarrass yourself in front of a billionaire, I'm saving you from that." She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Lydia, I'm terminating your contract, effective immediately." The world didn't stop. It didn't explode. It just got very, very sharp. I heard the hum of the refrigerator in the break room 40 feet away. I heard the squeak of Marcus's chair at the security desk. Terminated. The word hit my brain, but my brain didn't process the emotion. It processed the math. Bank balance, $842. Rent due in 9 days, $1,200. Car repair estimate, $600. Credit card minimum payment, $150. If I lost this job, I lost the bonus. If I lost the bonus, I defaulted on the student loans. If I defaulted, they would garnish nothing. I would have nothing to garnish. "You can't," I whispered. "I'm a senior analyst. You need cause. You need HR." "I'm a consultant with executive proxy," Bianca said, her voice dripping with sympathy. "And Florida is an at-will state, sweetie. We don't need a reason. But I'm giving you one because I respect you. You're not a culture fit. You're too rigid. You don't flow with the aesthetic we're building." She reached out and patted my arm. "Look at this as an opportunity," she said. "You were clearly miserable here. I could see it in your eyes the second I walked in. You were drowning. I'm just cutting the anchor so you can swim." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the stapler off my desk and throw it through the glass partition. Toxic benevolence. She was destroying my life and framing it as a rescue mission. "I need this job," I said, my dignity fractured. "Please, the merger. I did all the work. Just let me finish the merger. You can fire me after. Just let me get the signature." "Oh, honey," Bianca said, tilting her head. "That's just it. We don't need you for the signature. The papers are printed. Timothy is coming to see the company, not you. You're just the help." She gestured to Mike, one of the junior security guards who had walked up behind Marcus. "Mike," she called out, "could you escort Lydia to the exit? She's having a hard time letting go, and I don't want her to stress herself out anymore." Mike hesitated. He looked at me, his face pale. He knew me. I bought cookies from his daughter's Girl Scout troop every February. "Ms. Reynolds?" Mike said softly. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, Mike," Bianca said brightly. "She understands. It's for the best." I felt my legs moving. I was going to throw up. I needed to get to the bathroom before I threw up. I turned away from my desk. I looked at the 3 pilot pens lined up perfectly, the coaster waiting for the coffee. The green notebook locked in the drawer. It's over, I thought. 6 years, 7 promotions, thousands of hours of overtime, gone because of a pair of shoes. And then the revolving doors spun. Whoosh! We all froze. Timothy Nolan walked in. He wasn't surrounded by an entourage. He wasn't on his phone. He was wearing a faded gray suit that probably cost $5,000, but looked like he'd bought it at a thrift store in 1990. He was holding a wet umbrella. It had started raining. Marcus was right. Time did that thing where it stretches like taffy. I saw a raindrop fall from the tip of Timothy's umbrella and hit the marble floor. I saw the receptionist's jaw drop. I saw Bianca straighten her spine, flashing a 1,000-watt smile that didn't reach her eyes. And I saw myself through his eyes. I was standing there with a security guard hovering behind me, my face blotchy, my hands shaking, looking like a criminal caught stealing office supplies. Shame, hot and liquid, poured through my veins. I wanted to dissolve. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I tried to step behind Mike, to use his bulk to hide, but there was nowhere to go. "Timothy!" Bianca's voice rang out, shrill and excited. She stepped in front of me, blocking his view. "Welcome to Pearson Associates. We are so honored to have you." She extended a hand. Timothy didn't take it. He stopped walking. He looked at Bianca. Then he looked over her shoulder. His eyes found mine. The silence in the lobby was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a car crash, before the screaming starts. Timothy walked right past Bianca. He didn't even acknowledge her hand. It was as if she were a piece of furniture he was navigating around. He walked straight to me. "Lydia," he said. His voice was gravelly and warm, the voice of a man who smoked too many cigars and told too many stories. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He stopped 2 feet in front of me. He looked at Mike, the security guard. He looked at my shaking hands. He looked at the tears I was fighting to hold back. "Mr. Nolan," I squeaked. I cleared my throat. "Mr. Nolan, welcome. I didn't expect you until 10. "The forecast said rain," Timothy said, gesturing with his umbrella. "I hate traffic in the rain. Figured I'd come early. Maybe we could grab that coffee you promised me. You did remember the blue pens, right?" My voice broke. "Yes, they're on the desk." Bianca cleared her throat. It was a loud, aggressive sound. "Mr. Nolan," she said, stepping back into his line of sight. "I'm Bianca Carlisle, VP of Operations daughter and lead consultant. I'm afraid there's been a slight personnel change this morning." Timothy turned slowly to look at her. He didn't smile. He had what I called his poker face, neutral, unreadable, and terrifying. "Personnel change?" he repeated. "Yes," Bianca beamed, assuming she had his attention. "We're upgrading our client experience. Lydia was just leaving. She's transitioning out of the company today." Timothy looked back at me. Transitioning? I couldn't lie to him. I had never lied to him. That was the rule. "I was fired, Timothy," I whispered. The air left the room. "Fired," Timothy said. He tested the word like it was a piece of rotten fruit. "When?" "About 3 minutes ago," I said. "For what cause?" "Dress code violation," Bianca interjected smoothly. "We have strict standards for our client-facing representatives. Lydia's attire was, well, frankly, it was disrespectful to a man of your stature. We wanted to ensure you were greeted by someone who takes your business seriously." Bianca looked proud. She actually looked proud. She thought she had just paid him a compliment. Timothy looked at my khakis. He looked at my flats. Then he looked down at his own scuffed leather shoes. "Disrespectful," he murmured. Timothy laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a dry, barking sound. "That's rich," he said. "That is really rich." He turned fully toward Bianca. "You're Richard Carlisle's girl, right? I met you at the gala last year. You spent 20 minutes talking about your horse." Bianca's smile faltered. "Yes, Snickers. I don't care about the horse," Timothy said. His voice dropped an octave. "Do you know why I'm here, Ms. Carlisle? Do you know why I'm merging my life's work with this firm?" "Because of our global reach and strategic positioning," Bianca recited, like she was reading a brochure. "No," Timothy said. "I have global reach. I have positioning. I'm here because 3 years ago, when my wife was in the hospital, Lydia Reynolds was the only person from this firm who sent flowers to the house instead of the office. She's the only one who knows how to read my P&L statements without asking me to explain the acronyms. She is the only person in this entire glass box that I trust." He looked at me. "Grab your things, Lydia." I stammered. "I can't. I have to leave. Mike has to escort me." "Grab your things," Timothy repeated, his voice hard. "We're leaving." "Mr. Nolan." Bianca stepped forward, panic finally cracking her porcelain mask. "You can't leave. The contracts are ready. My father is waiting upstairs. The press release goes out at noon." Cancel it, Timothy said. What? The deal is off, Timothy said. He didn't shout. He said it casually, like he was ordering a sandwich. If Lydia isn't here, I'm not here. It's that simple. My heart stopped. The deal is off. I looked at Bianca. Her face had gone the color of white chalk. You can't be serious, she sputtered. Over a junior analyst? Mr. Nolan, this is a $4 billion merger. You can't let a disgruntled employee sabotage. She didn't sabotage anything, Timothy cut her off. You did. You fired my relationship manager 3 minutes before I walked in the door because you didn't like her shoes. That tells me everything I need to know about your judgment, and I don't do business with people who have bad judgment. He looked at me again. Lydia, box, now. I scrambled. I grabbed the cardboard box I had started packing earlier. I threw in the blue pens. I threw in the broken pieces of my world's okayest employee mug. I hesitated at the locked drawer. The notebook, I thought. Do I take it? Is it company property? No. I wrote it. It's mine. I unlocked the drawer and grabbed the green notebook. I shoved it deep into the box. I walked out from behind the glass partition, clutching my box like a shield. Bianca was trembling. She looked like a computer that had encountered a fatal error. Mr. Nolan, she tried again, her voice high and desperate. Let me take you upstairs. Once you speak to Deborah, surely we can... Don't follow me, Timothy said. He didn't look back. He put a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy and warm. Come on, kid. My driver is outside. We're not staying here. We walked toward the revolving doors. The silence in the lobby had been replaced by a low, buzzing murmur. Everyone was on their feet. The receptionist was furiously typing, probably messaging every assistant on the 30th floor. Marcus was staring at me with his mouth open. I felt like a ghost. I was walking through the place where I had spent 12 hours a day for 6 years, and I was leaving a trail of destruction behind me. I just cost them $4 billion, I thought. I just destroyed the company. Guilt, heavy and irrational, settled in my stomach. Even though Bianca had pulled the trigger, I felt like the gun. Wait, Bianca screamed. She was actually running now, her heels clacking frantically. You can't just walk out. Timothy stopped at the door. He turned one last time. Tell your father, he said, that he raised a fool. Then he pushed the door open, and the humid air hit us. We stepped out onto the sidewalk. The rain had stopped, but the pavement was slick and black. A long black town car was idling at the curb. Get in, Timothy said. I can't, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. Timothy, I can't go with you. My car is dead in the garage. I have to wait for a tow truck. Forget the car, he said. I can't forget the car, I snapped. The hysteria was bubbling up now. It's my only way home. I don't have money for an Uber, Timothy. I just lost my job. I have $800 to my name and my car is broken and I'm holding a box of pens. I was crying now. Ugly, gasping sobs that hurt my chest. Timothy looked at me. His expression softened. Okay, he said gently. Okay. Take a breath. I can't, I gasped. I can't breathe. Go sit on the bench, he said, pointing to the concrete bench near the fountain. Just sit. Give me a minute. I stumbled to the bench and sat down. I put the box on my lap. I buried my face in my hands. My hands were numb. That was the first sign. The tips of my fingers felt like they were wrapped in cotton wool. Then the tingling started in my lips. Hyperventilation. My brain supplied helpfully. Carbon dioxide levels dropping. Vasoconstriction. I tried to slow my breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. But my lungs refused to cooperate. I was taking shallow, jagged sips of air. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Thump, 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 thump. So fast it felt like a vibration rather than a beat. Am I dying? Is this a heart attack? I clutched my chest. The pain was sharp, right in the center. Stress cardiomyopathy, the overthinking engine whispered. Broken heart syndrome. You can actually die from stress. It happens. People just drop dead. I looked at the office building. It loomed over me, a giant tower of glass and steel. Somewhere on the 30th floor, phones were ringing. Deborah Pierce was probably screaming. Bianca was probably crying to her dad. And I was sitting on a wet bench, unable to feel my toes. Lydia. Timothy was standing over me. He was holding a bottle of water. Where did he get water? Drink, he said. I shook my head. I couldn't swallow. If I tried to swallow, I would choke. Drink, he commanded. I took the bottle. My hands were shaking so badly I spilled half of it down my chin. The cold water shocked my system. I gasped, finally taking a deep breath. There you go, Timothy said. He sat down next to me. He didn't care about the wet bench ruining his suit. I'm sorry, I wheezed. I'm so sorry, Timothy. I ruined it. I ruined everything. You didn't ruin anything, he said. He looked at the building, his eyes narrowing. They did. They forgot who does the work. That's a fatal error in my business. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek metal card case. Lydia, look at me. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I looked at him. I'm opening a new division in San Jose, he said. West Coast operations. I need a VP of strategic partnerships. Someone who knows my business. Someone who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. He handed me a card. Starting salary is $180,000, plus stock options, plus relocation. I stared at the card. The numbers swam before my eyes. 180,000. That was 3 times my current salary. That was freedom. That was debt-free. That was a car that started. That was a refrigerator that didn't hum. I stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a lifeline, he said. And I'm offering myself a guarantee that my West Coast office won't be run by morons. He stood up. My driver will take you home, or to a mechanic, wherever you need to go. Take the day. Think about it. Call me tomorrow. He started walking toward his car. Timothy, I called out. He stopped. Why? I asked. Why me? He smiled, a real smile this time. Because you remembered the blue pens, he said. And because you were the only person in that lobby who looked like they actually gave a damn. He got in the car. The door closed with a heavy, expensive thud. I sat there on the bench, holding the business card in one hand and my box of junk in the other. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Allison, my friend in accounting. Allison, OMG. Deborah just threw a chair. Security is swarming the 30th floor. What did you do? I stared at the screen. I looked at the business card. Then I looked at the building one last time. The panic was fading, replaced by something colder, something harder. I hadn't done anything, but I was about to. Timothy's driver was named Arthur. He didn't speak. He just held the rear door open for me with a white-gloved hand, his face a mask of professional indifference. I hesitated on the curb. My box of desk junk was damp from the rain. My khakis were splashed with mud. I looked like a refugee from a corporate war zone. Ms. Reynolds? Arthur said. It wasn't a question. It was a prompt. Get in the car. I slid onto the back seat. The leather was soft, smelling of cedar and conditioned hide. It was the kind of seat that swallowed you whole, designed to insulate billionaires from the potholes and bumps of the real world. Where to, ma'am? My address. I felt a spike of shame so sharp it actually made me wince. I lived in the Heights, a neighborhood that real estate agents politely described as up and coming, and everyone else described as where you go if you can't afford insurance. If I gave him the address, he would know. He would drive this 6-figure car past the pawn shops and the liquor stores with bars on the windows. He would pull up to my peeling apartment complex where the dumpster was always overflowing. he would see exactly how small my life was. "Can you just—" I started, my voice cracking. "Can you just drop me at the Starbucks on 4th and Main?" It was a lie. It was a safe, neutral location 3 blocks from my apartment, a buffer zone. "Certainly, ma'am." The car began to move. It glided. That was the only word for it. I sank back against the leather, clutching my box. I looked out the tinted window. The city rolled by, gray and wet. I saw people walking with umbrellas, rushing to jobs they probably hated. I don't have a job, I thought. The realization hit me again, fresh and bruising. I closed my eyes. I tried to do the math. My safety mechanism. $180,000. If I took Timothy's offer, I could afford a car like this. Well, maybe not a town car with a driver, but a car with leather seats. I could afford an apartment in a building with a doorman. I could afford to buy my dad the specialized hearing aids insurance refused to cover. But San Jose? That was 3,000 miles away. I had never lived more than 20 miles from where I was born. My entire support system, my dad, Allison, the few friends I had from college, was here. If I left, I would be rich, but I would be alone. Is being alone worth $180,000? I looked at the partition separating me from Arthur. Yes, I thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. Right now, I think it might be. The walk from Starbucks to my apartment was only 3 blocks, but in the rain, with a box of heavy files and a broken ceramic mug rattling inside, it felt like a pilgrimage. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to my unit, 3B. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and old carpet. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Silence. It wasn't the heavy, expectant silence of the office lobby. It was the flat, dead silence of an empty room. I put the box down on the kitchen table, which was actually just a folding card table I'd covered with a tablecloth. I looked around. The apartment was a testament to my financial juggling act. The sofa was a hand-me-down from my aunt, covered in a slipcover to hide the stains. The TV was small, sitting on a stack of cinder blocks and wooden planks I called industrial chic, but was actually just poor. I walked to the window and looked out at the alleyway. A stray cat was picking through a trash bag. This is it, I thought. This is who I am without the job. Without the title senior analyst, without the access badge, without the proximity to power. I was just a girl in a damp apartment with $842 in the bank. A wave of exhaustion crashed over me. It was physical, a heaviness in my bones. I wanted to sleep for a week. I walked to the tiny bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't change out of my wet clothes. I just sat there staring at the wall, listening to the dripping of the bathroom faucet I couldn't afford to fix. Then, the hope-threat swing hit me. I had the offer. Hope. I had the silence. Peace. My phone vibrated on the mattress. I looked at it. It wasn't Timothy. It wasn't Allison. It was an unknown number with a local area code. My stomach dropped. I knew who it was. "Hello?" I answered, my voice sounding rusty. "Yeah, this is Sal from Sal's Auto," a gruff voice said. "I got your Civic. Tow truck dropped it off about 20 minutes ago." "Right," I said. I squeezed my eyes shut. "What's the damage, Sal?" I visualized the bank app on my phone. 842. "Well?" Sal said, followed by the sound of a wrench clanking against metal. "It ain't good, sweetheart. You blew the head gasket, and because you drove it hot, which, by the way, never do that, you warped the cylinder head." "Okay," I whispered. "Can you fix it?" "I can fix anything," Sal said, "but it's going to require machining, parts and labor. You're looking at about $1,200. $1,200. The air left my lungs. $1,200, I repeated. Sal, I don't have $1,200. "It's a big job," he said, unapologetic. "Is there a cheaper fix? Just to get it running? Just for a few weeks?" "There's no Band-Aid for a warped head," Sal said. "Look, I can scrap it for you." Give you $300 for the parts, but that engine is toast unless you pay for the surgery. I need the car, I said. My voice was rising, that panic frequency returning. Sal, I just lost my job. I need the car to get to interviews. I can't be without a car. I'm sorry to hear that, Sal said. He sounded like he meant it, but he also sounded like a man running a business. Tell you what, I won't charge you storage for 3 days. You let me know what you want to do. He hung up. I lowered the phone. $1,200. I was negative $358 short. I looked at the box on the kitchen table. Timothy's offer was in San Jose. I needed a plane ticket. Plane tickets cost money. Moving costs money. I was trapped. I was completely, utterly trapped in this apartment. I curled up on the bed, pulling my knees to my chest. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was in the cold, hard calculation phase. I could sell the TV, maybe $50. I could sell my clothes to a consignment shop, maybe $100. I could donate plasma. My mind raced, cataloging my own body for spare parts to sell, just to fix a Honda Civic. My phone started buzzing again, and again, and again. It wasn't a call. It was a barrage of texts. I picked it up. Allison, you need to answer your phone. Allison, Lydia, seriously. Allison, Deborah is crying. Actual tears. Allison, Richard Carlisle just threw up in the men's room. Housekeeping is talking about it. Allison, they are calling emergency board meetings. Allison, I'm coming over. I stared at the messages. Deborah is crying. Deborah Pierce was the Iron Lady. She once fired a guy on his birthday because he used the wrong font on a presentation. She didn't cry. She made other people cry. A tiny dark spark of satisfaction lit up in my chest. Good, I thought. Cry, I typed back. Me, don't get fired for texting me. Allison, are you kidding? Nobody is working. We are all just standing around watching the Rome burn. I'm leaving at 5. I'm bringing wine. Lots of wine. I set the phone down. The satisfaction faded, replaced by anxiety. If Allison came over, I had to talk. I had to explain. I had to tell her about Timothy's offer. And if I told her, she would tell me to take it. She would tell me to run. But why did that feel like losing? I got up and walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. A half-empty jar of mayo, 2 eggs, and a Brita pitcher. Great hosting, Lydia, I muttered. I went to the box on the table. I needed to unpack. I needed to get the visible evidence of my failure off the table before Allison arrived. I started pulling things out. The stapler, the framed photo of my dad, the stress ball, and then the green notebook. Allison arrived at 6:30. She didn't knock. She pounded on the door like the police. When I opened it, she breezed past me carrying 2 bags of takeout and a bottle of Pinot Grigio that cost more than my hourly wage. You look terrible, she said, kicking off her heels. Like Victorian orphan terrible. Thanks, I said, locking the door. My car is dead. Sal wants $1,200. Forget the car, Allison said, popping the cork on the wine with practiced ease. The car is a future problem. The present problem is that you are a legend, a martyr, a folk hero. She poured 2 glasses, filling them to the brim. Here, she said, shoving a glass into my hand. Drink. Now tell me everything. Did Timothy really call Bianca a fool to her face? Because the story has mutated. Some people say he called her a clown. Some say he called her a parasite. He said her father raised a fool, I said, taking a sip. The wine was sharp and cold. It tasted like luxury. Oh, that is so much worse, Allison breathed, her eyes wide with delight. That is biblical. Richard is going to have a stroke. We sat on my lumpy couch. Allison opened the takeout containers, Thai food, pad Thai, and spring rolls. So, she said, her mouth full of noodles, what happened after? You got in his car. Where did you go? He offered me a job, I said quietly. Allison stopped chewing. She swallowed hard. He what? VP of Strategic Partnerships. West Coast Division, San Jose. I looked down at my wine. $180,000 a year. Allison stared at me. Then she screamed. It was a high, piercing shriek that probably made my neighbors think I was being murdered. "Lydia, that's lottery money. That's I buy a boat money." She grabbed my shoulders and shook me. "When do you leave? Please tell me you're leaving tonight." "I don't know," I said. Allison pulled back, looking at me like I was insane. "You don't know? Lydia, look at this apartment. Look at the water stain on the ceiling. You are broke. You are fired. And a billionaire just offered you a golden ticket. What is there to know?" "It's far," I said weakly. "And I don't know if I can do it. He thinks I'm some genius because I remembered his pens, but I'm just an analyst. What if I get there and I fail?" "The imposter syndrome," Allison groaned. "It is a disease, and you have a terminal case." And I hesitated. "I built something here, Allison. 6 years. I built that client list. I built those relationships. If I leave, I'm just handing it all over to Bianca. She wins. She gets to ruin everything I built." "She already ruined it," Allison exclaimed. "The deal is dead." "Is it?" I asked. I looked at the kitchen table. The green notebook was sitting there, innocuous and tattered. "Allison," I said slowly, "what is the company doing right now about the other clients?" "Panic mode," Allison said, pouring more wine. "Deborah has the junior associates cold calling everyone in Timothy's network to do damage control. But nobody has the contact info. It was all on your local drive, and IT locked your account." "My local drive," I repeated. "Yeah, they're trying to crack your password, but you know IT. It'll take them a week." I looked at the notebook again. "It wasn't on the drive," I whispered. "What?" I stood up and walked to the table. I picked up the notebook. It was a cheap composition book, the kind you buy for $1 at the drugstore. "The data," I said. "The birthdays, the grandkids' names, the dietary restrictions, the golf handicaps, the real reasons they trust us." I ran my hand over the cover. "I never put it in the CRM," I said, "because the CRM is clunky and I hated the interface. I kept it all here." Allison looked at the notebook. Then she looked at me. Her eyes went wide. "Lydia," she said softly, "are you telling me that Pierce & Associates, a firm managing $2 billion in assets, does not know that Mr. Henderson is allergic to shellfish?" "They don't know that Mr. Henderson is allergic to shellfish," I confirmed. "They don't know that Mrs. Gable hates being called before 10 a.m. They don't know that the CEO of Vertex is going through a divorce and needs extra reassurance right now." I opened the notebook. Pages and pages of my handwriting. Scribbles, notes, the DNA of my career. "They have the contracts," I said, "but they don't have the relationships." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't panic. It was power. For the first time all day, the math changed. Timothy wants me because I know the clients. The company needs me because I know the clients. I am not the help. I am the vault. "Allison," I said, turning to her, "if they can't access this information, then they are going to lose more than just the Nolan deal," Allison finished. "They are going to bleed clients. It'll be a massacre." She looked at the notebook with reverence. "You're holding a grenade," she said. "No," I said, closing the book with a snap. "I'm holding the pin." My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It wasn't Sal, the mechanic. It wasn't Timothy. Caller ID Deborah Pierce, CEO. Allison gasped. "Do not answer that." "Why?" "Because you're drunk on cheap wine and adrenaline," Allison said. "Let it go to voicemail. Make her wait." I looked at the phone. It danced on the table, buzzing angrily. Make her wait. I remembered Bianca sneering at my shoes. I remembered the security guard escorting me out. I reached out and pressed the volume button on the side of the phone, silencing the ring. "Let's eat the pad thai," I said. I woke up with a headache that tasted like $5 wine and regret. The sun was slicing through the gap in my curtains, hitting the floor right where I'd dropped my khakis the night before. I stared at them. They were wrinkled. They were the reason I was unemployed. I rolled over and checked my phone. 7:15 a.m. There was a voicemail icon, a little red dot that felt like a sniper's laser sight. I pressed play. Speakerphone. Lydia, it's Deborah. I understand emotions were high yesterday. I have reviewed the situation with Richard. We need to have a conversation about offboarding and transition of assets. Be in my office at 9. I've authorized security to let you up. Click. I sat up, the room spinning slightly. Transition of assets. She meant the clients. She meant the contacts. She meant the relationships I had spent 3 years building while she was at lunch. I looked at the kitchen table. The green notebook was sitting there next to the empty takeout containers. My heart did a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. If I went in there, they would try to bully me. They would threaten me with legal action. They would talk about company property and intellectual theft. "Don't go," the flight instinct whispered. "Call Timothy. Take the deal. Get on a plane to San Jose and never look back." I imagined it. The California sun, the clean slate, the 6-figure salary hitting my bank account. But then I imagined Bianca. I imagined her sitting at my desk, opening my files, calling my clients. I imagined her telling Mrs. Gable that I had moved on because I wasn't a culture fit. I imagined her erasing 6 years of my life with a toss of her blonde hair. I couldn't let her win. Not like that. I got out of bed. I didn't have a suit. I didn't have money to buy a suit. I picked up the khakis. I shook them out. I plugged in my iron. I was going to wear them again. It was petty. It was dangerous, but it was the only armor I had. My Honda Civic was currently sitting in a lot at Sal's Auto, waiting for a $1,200 miracle I couldn't afford. I opened the Uber app. Ride to downtown. $42. I stared at the screen. $42 was a week of groceries. $42 was almost 5% of my entire net worth. I can't do it. I closed the app and walked to the bus stop. It was raining again, a fine, misty drizzle that frizzed my hair instantly. I stood under the plastic shelter with a woman holding 3 grocery bags and a teenager listening to music so loud I could hear the bass line. When the bus arrived, it hissed and groaned, kneeling like a tired elephant. I paid the $2 in quarters I had scrounged from my change jar. I sat in the back. The seat was hard plastic, slippery and cold. The bus smelled of wet wool and disinfectant. As we rattled toward the city, stopping every 2 blocks, I felt the gap between my 2 potential futures widening. On one hand, Timothy's town car, leather seats, silence, respect. On the other, the number 42 bus, sticky floors, noise, struggle. Why am I going back? I asked myself, watching the rain streak the window. Why am I walking back into the lion's den when the door to the zoo is wide open? Because of the notebook in my bag. Because they thought I was nothing. Because Bianca called me the help. Because Deborah Pierce thought she could fire me and then summon me back to steal my brain. I gripped my bag tighter. I could feel the spine of the notebook through the canvas. I wasn't going back to beg. I was going back to negotiate. The bus dropped me off 2 blocks from the tower. By the time I reached the lobby, my flats were soaked through. I squished across the marble floor. Squish, squish, squish. It was the same sound as yesterday, but the feeling was different. Yesterday, I was an employee trying to be invisible. Today, I was an anomaly. I walked up to the security desk. Marcus was there. He looked at me. Then he looked at the wet footprints I was leaving. "Lydia," he said softly. I heard. "Hey, Marcus," I said. I tried to smile, but my face felt stiff. "I have a meeting with Deborah Pierce. She said she authorized me." Marcus typed something into his terminal. He frowned. Yeah, she did. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sticker, a white rectangular sticker with the word visitor, printed in bold red letters. I have to, he said apologetically. Policy, since your badge is deactivated. I know, I said. I took the sticker. I peeled the backing off. I stuck it to my blouse, right over my heart. Visitor. It felt like a brand. It felt like a scarlet letter. I don't belong here anymore. You okay? Marcus asked, lowering his voice. That girl, Carlisle's daughter. She's been terrorizing the reception staff all morning. Complain about the coffee, complain about the lighting. I'm okay, Marcus, I lied. Just tying up loose ends. Good luck, he said. He pressed the button to unlock the turnstile. I pushed through. The metal bar hit my hip. I walked toward the elevator bank, my head high, ignoring the stares of the people I used to work with. I pressed the button for the 30th floor. The elevator doors didn't open on the 30th floor. They opened on the parking garage level first. Someone had called it down. The doors slid open, revealing the concrete gray of level 2. Richard Carlisle was standing there. He wasn't waiting for the elevator. He was waiting for me. He was leaning against a concrete pillar, arms crossed, looking at his watch. When he saw me, he pushed off the pillar and smiled. It wasn't a villain's smile. It was a dad's smile. Warm, tired, apologetic. Lydia, he said, I'm so glad I caught you before you went up. My hand instinctively went to my bag, protecting the notebook. Mr. Carlisle, I said, I have a meeting with the CEO. I know, he said, stepping into the elevator with me. He didn't press a button. He just hit the door close, and then, terrifyingly, the emergency stop. The elevator lurched to a halt between floors. The silence was sudden and deafening. We were suspended in a metal box, somewhere between the ground and the sky. What are you doing? I asked, backing into the corner. My heart rate hammered a warning rhythm against my ribs. Just talking, Richard said soothingly. He held up his hands, palms open. Please, Lydia, no drama. I just want to have a human conversation. Father to a young woman who works very hard. He sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Yesterday was a disaster, he said. I admit that. Bianca, she's passionate. She has a vision, but she lacks your finesse. She fired me, I said, for wearing pants. She overreacted, Richard corrected gently. She was stressed. It was her first day. You know how it is. We all have bad days. But Lydia, we don't need to let one bad day ruin a promising career. He took a step closer, not threatening, just intimate, like he was letting me in on a secret. Deborah is angry, he whispered. She's talking about legal action, breach of contract, negligence. She wants to make an example out of you to save face with the board. I felt a cold spike of fear. Legal action? I couldn't afford a lawyer. I couldn't afford a bus ticket, let alone a legal defense. But, Richard continued, I think that's unnecessary. I think we can fix this. Just us. He reached into his suit jacket. I flinched. He pulled out a white envelope. It was thick. Lydia? He said softly. I know about the student loans. HR mentioned it during your last review. I know about the car issues. I saw it on the tow truck yesterday. He held the envelope out to me. There is $10,000 in here. Cash. Untraceable. I stared at the envelope. $10,000. That was my car fixed. That was my credit card paid off. That was 6 months of rent. That was breathing room. And, Richard added, seeing my hesitation, I can guarantee a glowing letter of recommendation will say you resign to pursue other opportunities. No firing on your record. You walk away clean. What do you want? I asked. My voice was trembling. Just help Bianca, he said. She's struggling with the client list. The CRM is messy. She says you have files, notes. Just hand them over to her. Sit with her for an hour, show her the ropes, help her succeed. He smiled, and it was the most toxic thing I had ever seen. She's a good girl, Lydia. She just needs a little guidance. You could be a mentor to her. Mentor. He wanted me to train the woman who fired me. He wanted me to sell my life's work for $10,000 so his daughter could pretend she earned it. He was trying to buy my dignity. And the worst part? The absolute worst part. For a second, I considered it. I thought about the debt. I thought about the fear of poverty. I thought about how easy it would be to take the money and disappear. 10,000, I whispered. It's a lot of money, Richard said, nodding encouragingly. It's a fresh start. I looked at his expensive suit. I looked at his manicured fingernails. He didn't see me. He saw a problem he could pay to go away. He thought I was cheap. The anger started in my stomach and burned its way up my throat. It wasn't the hot, flashy anger from yesterday. It was cold. It was steel. Open the door, I said. Richard blinked. Lydia, be reasonable. Deborah isn't going to offer you cash. She's going to offer you a lawsuit. Open the door. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice hardening. The nice dad mask slipped, revealing the shark underneath. You're a broke girl with no prospects, Lydia. Don't play poker when you can't afford the ante. I'm not playing poker, I said, clutching my bag. I'm playing fetch, and I'm done fetching. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he scoffed, a sound of pure dismissal. He hit the emergency stop button again. The elevator hummed back to life. Fine, he said, putting the envelope back in his pocket. Do it the hard way. See where that gets you. The elevator opened on the 30th floor. Richard stormed out without looking back. I waited 5 seconds, letting him get ahead before I stepped out. The executive floor was quiet, too quiet. Usually phones were ringing, assistants were running. Today, everyone was sitting at their desks, heads down, typing furiously. They were terrified. I walked to Deborah Pierce's office. Her assistant, a woman named Sarah, who usually ignored me, stood up immediately. Lydia, she said, looking nervous. Go right in, she's waiting. I walked to the double glass doors. I took a breath. You hold the grenade, I told myself. You hold the pin. I pushed the doors open. Deborah Pierce was sitting behind her massive mahogany desk. She wasn't looking at paperwork. She was looking at the window, staring out at the city skyline. She didn't turn when I entered. Sit down, she said. Her voice was flat. I sat in one of the uncomfortable leather chairs opposite her desk. I placed my bag on my lap. Deborah turned her chair slowly. She looked older than she had yesterday. Her makeup was perfect, but the lines around her mouth were deep. We have a problem, Lydia, she said. I know, I said. Timothy Nolan has refused to take my calls, she said. His legal team sent a notice this morning formally withdrawing from the merger. That's $4 billion gone. She picked up a pen and tapped it against the desk. Tap, tap, tap. And, she continued, Richard tells me that we seem to be missing critical data regarding our other key accounts. He says the CRM entries are generic. She looked at me. Her eyes were like lasers. Where's the data, Lydia? It's safe, I said. Is it on a hard drive? She asked. Is it on a cloud server? Because if you removed proprietary data from this building, that is a felony. It's not on a drive, I said. It's in my head. It was a half lie. The notebook was in my bag, but the knowledge was in my head. Deborah leaned forward. She laced her fingers together. You're angry, she said. I get it. You were treated poorly. Bianca was overzealous. But let's not burn the house down because you got your feelings hurt. My feelings? I laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. Deborah, I didn't get my feelings hurt. I got my livelihood destroyed. I got humiliated. I got fired for wearing the clothes that I have worn every day for 3 years while making you millions. And now you want revenge, she said. No, I said. I want justice. There's a difference. Justice doesn't pay the rent. Deborah said softly. "I know about your situation, Lydia. I know you're struggling." She opened a folder on her desk. "I'm prepared to offer you your job back," she said. "Senior analyst, same salary. We'll pretend this never happened. You come back, you update the CRM, you help us smooth things over with the clients." She looked at me like she was offering me a gift, like I should be grateful. Same salary. She wasn't offering me a promotion. She wasn't offering me an apology. She was offering me a return to the status quo. She thought that was enough. I thought about Timothy's card. 180,000. I thought about Richard's bribe. 10,000. I looked at Deborah. "No," I said. Deborah blinked. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated. "I'm not coming back as a senior analyst, and I'm not updating the CRM." "Lydia," Deborah warned, her voice dropping. "Be very careful." "You need me," I said. My voice was steady, even though my hands were sweating. "You don't need an analyst. You have plenty of analysts. You need the relationships. You need the trust. And you broke the trust." I stood up. "I'm not here to ask for my job back," I said. "I'm here to tell you that I'm leaving. I'm taking the job with Timothy Nolan, and I'm taking my relationships with me." It was a bluff. I couldn't take the clients legally. But Deborah didn't know what was in the notebook. She didn't know exactly what I had. Fear flickered in her eyes. Real fear. "You can't," she said. "Non-compete." "My contract was terminated," I said, "without cause. The non-compete is void." I checked. I hadn't checked. I was guessing, but I hoped to God I was right. Deborah stood up. She slammed her hand on the desk. "You walk out that door, Lydia, and I will make sure you never work in finance again. I will bury you." "You already tried to bury me," I said. "It didn't work." I turned to the door. "Wait," Deborah said. I stopped. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was tight, desperate. "If you don't want your job back, what do you want?" I turned back to her. "I want you to admit it," I said. "Admit what?" "That you let a spoiled brat destroy your company because you were too afraid to tell her father no." Deborah stared at me. She didn't speak. "That's what I thought," I said. I walked out, but as I reached the elevator, my legs gave out. I had to lean against the wall. I had just rejected the bribe. I had rejected the job offer. I had nothing except the notebook and a war that was just beginning. I stepped out of the elevator into the lobby, and the air felt different. It was charged, static electricity before a lightning strike. Bianca was waiting for me. She wasn't alone. She had 2 security guards, not Marcus, 2 guys I didn't recognize, flanking her like royal bodyguards. "Stop her," Bianca said. Her voice was calm, dripping with that fake, concerned syrup. "She has sensitive company data in her bag. We need to secure it before she leaves the premises." The guard stepped forward. My hand flew to my bag, the green notebook. They know, I thought. Deborah called down. She knows the leverage is in the bag. "This is my personal property," I said. My voice sounded thin in the cavernous lobby. "You have no right to search me." "Lydia, please," Bianca sighed, shaking her head as if I were a toddler throwing a tantrum. "I'm trying to protect you. If you walk out with proprietary client lists, that's a felony. I don't want you to go to prison. I just want the data." She reached out a manicured hand. "Just give me the notebook, sweetie, and we can forget all this nastiness." I looked at her hand. I looked at the guards. If I gave her the notebook, I was finished. I was just another fired employee with a broken car and a mountain of debt. If I kept it, I was a felon. The hope, threat swing. Hope. I hold the keys to the kingdom. Threat. The keys might lock me in a cell. "I'm not giving you anything," I said. "Grab the bag," Bianca ordered the guards. "Don't touch me," I screamed. The lobby went silent. The receptionist stopped typing. A courier froze near the door. "You want the data?" I unzipped my bag. I didn't hand it over. I pulled the notebook out and held it up. You want to know what's in here? I opened it to a random page. Mr. Sterling, I read aloud. Account number 459, net worth $50 million. He hates it when you call him Mr. Sterling. He wants to be called Commander because he was in the Navy. If you don't ask about his golden retriever buster within the first 2 minutes of the call, he hangs up. Bianca blinked. What? I flipped the page. Mrs. Wu, tech sector. She's allergic to lilies. If you send her the standard congratulations bouquet, you will send her to the ER. She prefers orchids, white ones. I looked at Bianca. This isn't data, I said, my voice shaking with adrenaline. This is empathy. You can't steal it. You have to earn it. That's enough, Bianca snapped. She lunged for the book. At that exact second, the main switchboard phone at the reception desk rang. It was a loud, jarring trill that echoed off the marble walls. The receptionist, a young girl named Jenny, picked it up. Her face went pale. Ms. Carlyle? Jenny squeaked. It's the commander. Mr. Sterling. He's on the line. He's screaming. Bianca froze. Her hand hovered inches from my notebook. Put him on speaker, Bianca said, straightening her jacket. She looked at me with a smirk. I'll handle this. I'll show you how a professional manages a client. Jenny hit the button. Incompetent morons! The voice roared through the lobby. I called 3 times. Why is Lydia Reynolds' email bouncing back? Who is handling my portfolio? Bianca stepped toward the desk. She put on her best customer service voice. Mr. Sterling, hi, this is Bianca Carlyle, lead consultant. Lydia has transitioned to new opportunities, but I am personally... I don't care who you are, Sterling yelled. I need the transfer authorized for the acquisition. It has to happen by noon. Where's the paperwork? We're on it, Bianca said soothingly. I'll just pull up your file. She tapped furiously on the receptionist's keyboard. I'm not seeing an acquisition order in the CRM, she murmured. Her sweat was starting to show. Are you sure you sent it? Am I sure? Sterling sounded like he was about to have an aneurysm. Lydia knows. I told Lydia last week at the golf course. It's in her notes. Bianca looked at me. Panic flared in her eyes. The toxic benevolence was gone. She was just a drowning girl looking for a life raft. Lydia? She whispered. I looked at the phone. I looked at the notebook in my hand. Do I let it burn? If I let it burn, the company dies, but so do the jobs of Jenny and Marcus and Allison. I walked to the desk. I didn't look at Bianca. I leaned over the speakerphone. Commander, I said. It's Lydia. The shouting stopped instantly. Lydia? What the hell is going on? Why is my email bouncing? Technical glitch, I lied. We're upgrading the security protocols. Regarding the acquisition, it's the Grimshaw deal, right? The $12 million buy-in? Yes, the deadline is 1 p.m. I have the paperwork drafted, I said. It's on my local drive. I can have it to you in 10 minutes. How's Buster's hip surgery recovery going? Oh, much better. Sterling's voice softened immediately. He's walking on it today. Thanks for asking, kid. Just get me the papers. I was about to pull my funds. On it, Commander. I hit the mute button. The lobby was dead silent. Bianca was staring at me. Her mouth was slightly open. I turned to her. That, I said quietly, is how you manage a client. The elevator doors pinged again. Deborah Pierce stepped out. She had come down. She had heard everything. She looked at Bianca, who was trembling. She looked at the phone. She looked at me, holding the green notebook like a weapon. Lydia, Deborah said. I'm leaving, I said. I moved to zip the bag. No, Deborah said. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. Lydia, stop. She walked past Bianca. She didn't even look at her VP's daughter. She walked straight to me. You saved the account, she said. For now, I said. He'll leave when he finds out I'm gone. They all will. I know, Deborah said. She looked around the lobby. She saw the eyes of her employees, the security guards, the receptionist, the courier. They were all watching. She took a deep breath. She looked tired. For the first time, she looked like a human being, not a CEO. "My office," she said. "Please." "I'm done talking," I said. "I have a flight to book to San Jose." "VP of Client Relations," Deborah said loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "Board seat, full autonomy, and a salary match to whatever Nolan offered." I stopped. VP, board seat, autonomy. It was everything I had ever wanted. It was the power to fix the broken things. But I looked at Bianca. She was already recovering, pulling out her compact to check her makeup, assuming that Daddy's money would still protect her. "No," I said. Deborah looked shocked. "What?" "I don't just want the job," I said. "I want the cancer cut out." "What are you saying?" Deborah asked, stepping closer. I leaned in. I spoke in a low voice, but it was hard as diamond. "I want them gone. Richard, Bianca, today." Deborah stiffened. "Lydia, Richard has been with me for 20 years. He's a stakeholder." "He's a liability," I said. "He tried to bribe me in the elevator. $10,000 cash to cover up his daughter's incompetence." Deborah's eyes went wide. "He what?" "And Bianca," I continued, gesturing to the woman who was now berating the receptionist for the phone volume. "She almost cost you $50 million in 30 seconds. Imagine what she'll do in a month." I tapped the notebook cover. "I stay, they go, that's the deal. Or I walk out that door, call Timothy Nolan, and take every single name in this book with me to California." It was the hardest thing I had ever done. It was blackmail. It was ruthless. It was business. Deborah looked at Richard, who had just emerged from the stairwell, looking sweaty and nervous. She looked at Bianca. Then she looked at me. She saw the khakis. She saw the determination. "If I do this," Deborah whispered, "you have to fix the Nolan deal. You have to bring Timothy back." "I can try," I said. "Trying isn't enough," Deborah said. "You have to close it." "Then give me the pen," I said. "Richard," Deborah called out. Her voice rang through the lobby. Richard Carlisle jogged over, smiling that oily smile. "Deborah, I was just handling—" "You're fired," Deborah said. Richard stopped. He laughed. "Good one, Deb. Listen, about the Sterling call." "I'm serious," Deborah said. She signaled to the guards, the ones Bianca had summoned to stop me. "Escort Mr. Carlisle and his daughter to the exit. Their access is revoked effective immediately." "Daddy?" Bianca squeaked. "What is she talking about?" "Deborah, you can't," Richard snarled. The mask fell off completely. "I know where the bodies are buried. I have equity. And I have a witness to attempted bribery," Deborah said, nodding at me. "Do you want me to call the police, Richard? Or do you want to leave quietly?" Richard looked at me. His eyes were full of hate, pure, unadulterated hate. "You," he spat. "You little—" "Careful," I said, holding up the notebook. "I'm the VP of Client Relations now, and I don't think we have a file for you." The guard stepped forward. Marcus, who had been watching from his desk, stood up. He walked over, towering over Richard. "Let's go, sir," Marcus said. His voice was deep and final. I watched them go. Bianca was crying, dragging her $5,000 bag across the floor. Richard was shouting threats into his phone. The revolving door spun. Whoosh, whoosh. They were gone. The silence returned, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. Deborah turned to me. She extended a hand. "Welcome back, Lydia." I shook it. "I need a phone," I said. "I have to call a billionaire." I sat at Deborah's desk. She stood by the window watching me. I dialed Timothy's private number. Ring, ring. "This is Nolan." "Timothy," I said, "it's Lydia." Silence. "I thought you were packing," he said. "San Jose is nice this time of year." "I'm not going to San Jose," I said. "I'm staying." "Lydia." Timothy sighed. He sounded disappointed. "Don't tell me you let them buy you back. You're better than that." They didn't buy me, I said. I took over. Excuse me? Richard Carlisle is gone, I said. Bianca is gone. I'm the new VP of Client Relations. I have a seat on the board. I have full autonomy to restructure the account management division. I took a deep breath. I'm asking you to come back to the table, Timothy. Not for the company that fired me, but for the company I'm going to build. You're asking me to trust a firm that imploded 4 hours ago, Timothy said. I'm asking you to trust me, I said. You said business is personal. You said you trust the person across the table. Well, I'm sitting at the head of the table now. There was a long pause. I could hear him tapping a pen. 90 days, I blurted out. Give me a 90-day probation. If I haven't completely overhauled the culture, if I haven't proven that we treat every client like a human being, you can walk. No penalty. 90 days, Timothy repeated. 90 days, I said. I'll bet my board seat on it. I heard a lighter click. He was lighting a cigar. You've got guts, kid, he said. I'll give you that. Is that a yes? I'll be there in 20 minutes, Timothy said. Have the blue pens ready. Click. I lowered the phone. My hand was shaking, but I was smiling. I looked at Deborah. He's coming back, I said. Deborah let out a breath that sounded like a deflating tire. She slumped into a chair. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, I said, standing up and smoothing my wrinkled khakis. We have a lot of work to do, starting with the dress code. 3 months later, I am writing this from my new office. It has glass walls, but I keep the door open. Always. The past 90 days have been a blur of firing, hiring, and restructuring. We lost about 10% of our clients in the initial fallout, but we gained 15% back once word got out that we were the only firm in the city that actually gave a damn about the people behind the money. Richard Carlisle tried to sue. It didn't go far. It turns out, when you try to bribe an employee in an elevator, you shouldn't do it in a building where the CEO records security audio. He settled out of court and moved to Florida. Bianca started a lifestyle blog. It has 12 followers. As for the Honda Civic, I didn't fix it. I bought a new one. A hybrid. Practical. Reliable. But this one has leather seats. Timothy signed the final merger documents this morning. He used the blue pen. When he was leaving, he stopped by my office. You know, he said, looking at the bustling floor of analysts who were actually smiling, I think I made the right choice. San Jose would have been warmer, I joked. Maybe, he grinned, but the coffee here is better. He walked out, and I looked down at my desk. The green notebook was sitting there. It wasn't hidden in a drawer anymore. It was open. And right next to it was a new memo I had just signed for HR. Subject, dress code policy update. Effective immediately. Wear what makes you work best. I leaned back in my chair, kicked off my flats, and got back to work. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.